My name is Amy Kochek with Amy Kochek Creative. I am a writing coach. I'm a ghostwriter. I'm an editor. I am really all things story related because I believe that the most powerful asset that you have in your life is your story. And from doing what I do, I have come across so many people that have shared part of their story or have told me, man, I really want to write a book, or I have a really great story to tell. But for some reason, they keep their story locked up inside of them, or they don't feel validated in their story, so they don't share it. So I decided to use my platform to share some really great stories from people all over the world. And the stories have been so powerful and have created such an impact. And if they've changed nobody else since I've been doing these interviews, I have been changed, and I have taken bits and pieces from every interview. And today is going to be no different. Now listen, I have been excited for interviews before, but I am so excited for this interview because for a couple of reasons. One, this is like my first nighttime extraordinary stories interview. Usually we do them in the mornings, but based on our guest schedule, we kind of had to push it, which I was totally fine with. And second, I have my big sister on today, which if you do the totality of our story, and I'm sure at some point in our lives we'll tell it, this is a miraculous event, and I am honored and privileged to have my sister on with me, Abby Kochek. I call her Abigail, but she's going to prefer that I say Abby because everybody else besides our family calls her Abby.
You can call me Abigail. That's all right.
Okay, so I'm going to call you Abigail, but just know that everybody refers to her as Abby. This is my big sister.
Yeah, if you called me Abby, it would be weird, so don't do that.
Yeah. So it's probably going to be a little bit weird because everyone says we sound exactly alike. So hopefully it doesn't sound like I'm talking to myself and you're talking to yourself. But we are 15 months apart, so we're super close in age. And Stanton is here. So happy Stanton is here. So many good memories. But anyways, so I'm really, really excited to have my sister on today, and I'm going to try to keep it as professional as possible without being just giddy because my sister is my hero, my best friend, my confidant, all those good things. And we've been through a lot together, especially within the past few years. And I'm just so excited that she was willing to get on and share her story because she has a phenomenal story to share. So, Abigail, I want you to start the way I have everybody start, and I just want you to tell us a little bit about yourself, relevant information, whatever you want to share.
Okay. Well, I hate when people ask me, tell me a little about yourself, because I feel like there's so much more to people than, hi, my name is, and this is what I do. But I mean, that's what I'll do. So, my name is Abby, and I live in Northwest Indiana. I've been born and raised in the same spot. I currently, right now, I've been working with Franciscan for the past 7 years. I'm a rad tech by trade, but currently in my role, basically I wear a whole lot of hats, but my main job is I work as basically an event planner. So we do a lot of wellness services, blood draws. So I get to do a lot of different things. I get to go out and be in the community, although right now I'm not because of all of the chaos that's going on, which is killing me. I've been stuck in the office, but it gives me an opportunity to go out and meet people, and I have a really amazing team. Shout out to my team. They are awesome. So I work with a whole lot of great people, have developed a lot of great friendships. So, and I don't know, I guess I have my family. Everybody except for you is, within driving distance. And so really value my close relationship with my family. I have my little puppy Max, which anybody on my Facebook, I'm boring on Facebook. Pretty much the only things that I do is post pictures of my dog. But I mean, that's pretty much the surface of me.
That's awesome. And just to plug some of the things that you do, she's like super crafty. So she like recreates like name brand shoes and does all this great stuff with her hands. I do want to say that. Okay, so we're going to jump into the pivotal moment in your life. So I always say everybody has pivotal moments in their lives. Sometimes they're multiple moments, but it's that moment in your life where the trajectory of your life changes. Something happens that causes you to change a different mindset and to take different actions with your life. So before we get to that very pivotal moment, I want you to take us before what was going on in your life. Who was Abby before this pivotal moment happened?
So I think it's going to be kind of hard for me to say this, just because if anybody knows me and they've heard me tell a story before, they know that I kind of go all over the place, because I feel like you start a story and then there's a backstory, so you kind of have to veer off and then you get back on and then something else. So I'll try to stay on track as much as I can, but pretty much I was, I think this was 4 years ago, maybe. So I was in my early 30s. I really, at this point in my life, I felt like I was stuck, like I was in a rut, and almost like I was waiting for something to happen to me, because I feel like I was very discontented in my life. I felt isolated. And I had been dealing with, for my entire life, just a lot of insecurities and I really lacked any self-assurance at all. So I just felt like I was so unhappy and very discontented. And I thought, okay, what must be the problem? It must be my environment that I'm in. I must be in an environment that is not allowing me to grow or to make the next steps. And there was a couple of different times that I felt like, oh, okay, something's going to happen. A door's going to open. I'm going to leave. And I felt like I kept hearing, for a couple different people, you really need to get out of here. You're just going to be stuck in the same place all the time. Northwest Indiana is just a terrible place to be. In the winter, it's pretty awful to be here. But I felt like there was this enormous pressure put on me by myself and by others that I wasn't living up to my expectation, or to others' expectations, or just to who I should be and the person that I should be. Almost like, it's never enough. And part of it is I battle with being a perfectionist a lot. So just not measuring up to my own expectations. My life is not turning out the way I thought it was, so I need to leave. So
let me pause you for a second. So one of the things that you talked about was having a battle with certain insecurities in your life. What were some specific insecurities that you felt really paralyzed you from being who you felt you were?
Well, I think a lot just had to do with my insecurities from when I was younger, when I was severely overweight. And I think a lot of girls deal with body issues, image issues. Even if you have a cute little petite figure, a lot of girls really, they focus on, I don't look the right way, so I'm not valued. And a lot of it too, I felt uncomfortable in my own skin. I felt like, I was just, I don't know if I would say kind of like I didn't fit into the mold of everyone else around me. Like I don't really know how to describe it, but I think a lot of it had to do with outward appearance. I felt uncomfortable with how I looked. Another thing, probably, I think a big part of it was I didn't really know who I was. I wasn't really self-aware. And because of that, I didn't feel safe sharing who I was, because really I didn't know who that person was anyway. So I was very guarded. I tend to get hurt really easily. And I think that's because I have the capacity to love really hard. So because of that, when I do let my emotions or let my walls down and I begin to trust somebody, I trust them 100%. So, and if you do that, you give people, you know, the potential to hurt you. So then I kept my guard up, and a lot of it just had to do with fear of being hurt or fear of being rejected. So
yeah, everything that you're saying is so valid, because I know so many people, if they were to tell their story, have roots, especially women, you know, like going through that, like figuring out your identity. But I wanted to specifically focus on this part. So you said something about how you didn't know who you were. So really introducing yourself to other people or connecting to other people was so difficult because you didn't know who you were. Let's talk about how that then translates to how you relate to people, and then how you even start to make decisions. Like, how are you navigating your life when you don't know who you are and you don't feel like you fit? How does life start to navigate for you?
So one of the ways I think that not knowing who I was really detrimental had to do with the friendships and relationships that I formed. And I think a lot of it had to do with, kind of like I was saying about keeping walls up and not being able to trust people. And because of that, it's almost like I felt, I don't know, if it kind of putting pressure on other people. Like I needed somebody to validate me. I needed somebody to say, you are enough. You know, you're not this strange, crazy loser or weirdo, you know, because you think differently or because you're introverted or because, you know, just anything. And so I felt like I went into a relationship putting a lot of expectations on the other person and wanting them to validate me. And same thing with the decisions I made. I felt like everything that I did, every decision I made, I had some key people in my life, and it's almost like I had to go with them with everything and kind of like have them sign a permission slip. Well, I was thinking about doing this. What do you think about that? Do you think this is the right decision? And questioning myself constantly and looking for that validation from others, which was really, it was very detrimental to me. And it really screwed up with my head a lot, because I would have something, you know, I felt, okay, this is the right decision for me to make, or this is the right choice or whatever. And I would go to people who didn't know me because I didn't know myself very well. So I couldn't share myself with that person.
Right.
Or they were completely different than me. Their priorities were different. Their personality was different. So I'd go to them and I'd say, you know, I'm really feeling like this. And that person would say, well, I don't really see that as being right for you. I think that I really feel, just because I know you, I know your temperament, your personality, I know the habits that you have, I think this is the right thing. So then I'm constantly warring with myself and doubting myself and thinking, yeah, they're probably right. I probably don't know. This is probably the wrong decision. And then I would listen to the other voices because they were so much louder than my own, because I allowed them to be. So then I would make choices that weren't true to myself. And then, of course, I became more and more discontented and unhappy.
Yeah. So take us to that moment where it starts to shift, where it's almost like you wake up from this. It kind of sounds like a nightmare. You wake up from the nightmare and like everyone, shut up. What is that? What is that like?
So I guess the best way for me, an analogy, a biblical analogy, if you will. So I was going to leave Indiana, or leave my present circumstance, 3 times. Thrice I tried to leave, and I thought, if I change my surroundings, stuff is going to start turning around for me. I'm going to start moving forward. Every single time. So the first 2 times were not as drastic. So I thought, I was on the verge. I thought, I'm getting the heck out of here. And each time, those 2 times, shut it down. So then the final time, it was almost like, and I kept praying. I was like, God, please let me get out of here. Please let me get out of here. And nothing was happening. I felt like God is silent. This is just awful. So then 2016, it was February. And so I'm like, okay, I'm looking for a job. I'm going to find something. So I start searching everywhere. And I found this job. It was in occupational medicine, which I'm currently doing. And so I thought, okay, this is perfect. It's in Cincinnati, Ohio. And I thought, okay, I'll go there. It's within driving distance of my family. I'll be good. And there was a church out there. I thought, okay, I heard here it's a really great church. I'm going to try it. And it just so happened that you were going to be there with the conference. So I thought, this is totally
stars have aligned.
Stars. Yeah. Because, okay, I would have a place to stay because, we were having a little church conference. I was going to have somebody's home that I could stay in. And it was perfect. I called the place. I'm like, I'm going to be in town. Can we do an interview this day? Yes. I thought, oh, getting out of here. I'm shaking the dust of this town off my feet. Getting the heck out of here. My life is about to be amazing.
Yeah.
So I remember driving down and I felt the whole way, I was like, this is great. I felt really just like, okay, my life is about to start. And I am telling you, when I drove into the city immediately, and of course, I'm not connecting this in my brain because my brain is telling me, okay, everybody has told you, if you leave, your life is about to start. These people that you put in your life as your spirit guides, basically, you went to them and told them, and they said, yeah, this is the right move for you. And so in my mind, I'm dismissing the sick feeling in my stomach. Like, okay. So then I go for my interview and I'm walking through the place. I'm like, I could feel it in my stomach. This is not where I'm supposed to work. Then I had gone before I had left, I'd gone on some apartment website and I found this apartment. I'm like, oh, this is so cute. I drive there and I thought that I was going to get murdered. So awful. And I'm driving. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't live here. So then I remember I got to the house we were going to stay. And I remember you met me at the door and it was pretty much either right when I saw you or about 10 minutes later, I was bawling because I knew like the pit of my stomach. And again, I am fighting with myself because I'm thinking, no, this is what I'm supposed to do. And my stomach, my gut is telling me this is not right. Yeah. And then I remember, we stayed the weekend and Sunday we go to church. And again, I mean, it was a good church. The service was good. It wasn't like I thought, oh, this place is awful. It was just as soon as I walked in, I'm like, this is not right. This is not my home. This is not where I'm supposed to be. So I'm like, okay, well, I don't know. I'll go back. I'll get it together. I don't know. So I get in my car. I'd gotten some Panera bread. I thought, okay, I'm going to drive home. I got my lunch. I'd said goodbye to everybody. I drive literally 15 minutes. So I'm still in the Cincinnati city limits. It's raining. So my car starts smoking and I'm pressing on the gas. It's not accelerating. So I'm on the highway. So I ease over to the side of the road. I'm like, dear Lord, I don't even know what's going to happen. I mean, I am well past being able to call my dad or my brother to say, come pick me up. And I mean, it's a disaster. So I call a tow truck and then I had to call the family that we stayed with. I'm like, can you guys come and meet me at this place? We're going to tow it. I didn't even know where to tow it. So he was like, okay, tow it to this Ford dealership or something, which by the way, my car was a Mazda. It was a Sunday. This place was closed. So he's like, just take it there. We've used that place before. It's fine. Stay the night with me. We still have the cots downstairs. You can stay with us. No problem. I thought, okay. So the next morning, I call the place. They said, I'm not sure why you brought this here. We don't service Mazdas. So then I'm like, okay, I'm going to get it towed somewhere else. So I got it towed to some Mazda place. Like, so then I go there and they tell me, I think it was the catalytic converter. They said, this car, in order for us to fix it, it's going to cost like $2,500. I thought, oh, heck to the no. I am not putting that much money on this car. It's not worth it. So I'm sitting there and I am stranded in Cincinnati. And this is the place where I know I'm not supposed to be there. I keep calling my mom every day. I'm bawling. I'm like, I have to get out of here. I can't be here anymore. This is terrible. So finally, I'm like, you know what? I got to leave my car here. I can't drive it back home. I am definitely not paying to tow it all the way back to Northwest Indiana from Cincinnati. No way. So I leave finally, and I rented a car. So by this time I believe it was Tuesday. So I had stayed 2 extra days by myself in these dear people's basement. Thank God for them that they let me stay there. So as I drove out of the city in my rented car, I was like, oh my gosh, I just wanted to go home. I wanted my mom. I kept calling her like, Mom, I can't do this. And so I get back, I call them because then I had to have it towed again. So I have had this car towed 3 times. So I get it towed to this CarMax. They say, we looked it up and it looks like this car had structural damage before you bought it. So we can only give you $200 for this car. And it was not paid off yet. I still had money on it. So I'm sitting in my room. And at this time I was still living with Mom because of course I'm not going to move out. I'm going to stay with my mother because my life is about to begin. I'm about to blow this popsicle stand. I'm getting the heck out of here. So of course I'm not going to get an apartment. I'm not going to buy a house for sure. I'm leaving. So I'm sitting in my room. My mother comes in and I am bawling. I'm like, this was a sign. This was supposed to happen. I was supposed to leave. Why is this happening to me? And it was almost like I cried for a little bit. I don't even remember what she told me, but it was like a switch went off in my brain. And it was like I turned it off and I thought, okay, this is ridiculous. I have been trying to leave here forever. And I felt like this 3rd time, this was Balaam and his donkey. God had tried to tell me the first 2 times nicely, you need to stay here for this point in your life. For this season, you were supposed to be here. And I didn't listen because I was allowing other voices to be louder than my own and God's. So the 3rd time, I said, I'm going to leave. And God said, no, you're not. And so the donkey spoke to me on the side of the road in Cincinnati and said, guess what? You are done. And it was just a light switch went off in my head. And I thought, you know what? I am done waiting. I am sick and tired of sitting here in limbo and thinking, when is my life going to start? When am I going to start in, growth? When am I going to, just in general, when is my life going to start? I thought, who cares about that? I'm done. So I thought, I'm just going to live my life. Whatever happens is going to happen. So within 2 or 3, I think within 3 days, I had a new car. Within 1 month, I moved out into my own apartment. Within a year, I had a house. And it was like things started to fall into place. And I thought, why? I just felt like I got to the point where everybody thought they knew better than me what I needed. And
pause.
Yes.
Because that was a really great point.
Yes.
I want to talk about how quick the physical changed, but now I really want you to hone in on what is the, how do you, because so many people are listening to you and saying, I get that with my soul. Mm-hmm. They're still caught in that. Like so many of us put our life on pause, or we don't make vital decisions in our lives because we don't know how to make our own decisions, because we've lived so much with other people telling us, you don't know how to live your life. So let me show you. So then how do you start to shift to then figuring out who Abby is, what is Abby like, and then starting to boldly make the decisions for your life with confidence? How does that shift occur for you?
Well, I think a couple of things. I think that it is very important to be self-aware. And I think in order to do that, you really have to be a student of yourself. I really dove into learning about personality. So I took a ton of quizzes. And this is me, this fits with my personality. I want to learn the little minutia. And so made I became a student of myself, and I started to really work on, you know, what is my voice saying? Not what is everybody else saying? What do I think? What do I want? Who am I really? And I went to something that could guide me because I didn't really know. So I started learning, and I would read about my personality type. And then I found out a bunch of things that I didn't realize. And I found, some uh, unhealthy habits that I had. Like I talked about my perfectionism, and I realized, this is a pitfall for me. So I need to start making changes so that I can start bettering myself. So I'm not so hung up on being perfect all the time. And so I think it's just slowly allowing yourself to find out who you are. And I think a lot of it has to do with mindfulness too, to stop and think, wait a second, is this my voice speaking, or am I trying to get validation from other people? Am I still going to others to say, you're right?
Yeah, and I really want you to mention this because I think it's very important. Now, we are sisters. We were each other's best friends, and we would call each other every day. But from 2016, close into 2018, we weren't talking. And I just want you to touch on that because I think that it's important for people who are in the same position to you to know the journey to finding yourself sometimes has to be drastic. You have to silence voices. So I want you to just touch on that real quick.
Okay. One thing I also want to say to your point, I think something that is very vital in trying to find out who you are and to really know yourself is you need to be alone. And I know that it's a very scary thing to be alone because you are confronted with yourself, and you're confronted with the good, the bad, and the ugly. And sometimes it's very ugly. But I think with me and you specifically, and everybody who knows you have a very big personality. You are very charismatic. Everybody loves you. You're the life of the party. And so it was almost like, because I was more introverted, and when I say introverted, I don't want it to be shy, because I feel like a lot of time introverted there's a negative connotation to that. And people say you're introverted, and it just sounds like, well, you're a shy weirdo. No, introverted, I associate that more with being reserved. So, because I am not a shy person, but I don't lay it out all on the table. It takes an effort to get to know me, and there's a lot of layers. And I feel like sometimes introverts, especially if they're really close with extroverts and they're not self-assured, they kind of step to the background because it's almost like I used your self-assurance and it kind of rubbed off on me. So I think that to have those 2 years when and it wasn't like we were not talking at all and we were like bitterly angry at each other. It was just things had happened in our lives that had separated us. And I think it was the most important time in our entire lives because it really helped me, especially, to step back and say, I need to define myself apart from my relationships. And I'm not defined by the relationships that I have. The relationships that I have add to my life, and they are a huge important thing in my life, my relationships, but they don't define who I am. I define who I am. So I think that is the huge, probably the biggest key. If you really want to know who you are, you have to make a study of yourself, and you need to be alone, and you have to be willing to be uncomfortable in being alone.
Yeah. I want to wrap it up by asking two final questions, and they'll kind of complement each other. So the first question is, through this whole situation, and obviously you can probably pull a bunch of stuff, but what would you say is your one big lesson from this whole situation that you went through?
Well, I think, at least for me, I feel like what has changed so drastically is the quality of my relationships. And I think it's because, like I talked about in the beginning, I had a really hard time having true close relationships because I would go in needing so much. I needed to be validated. I always felt like I was giving more in the relationship than the other person was. I never felt safe in trusting my heart to people because I knew I wasn't good enough or I didn't fit into a mold. And after this whole situation, it really taught me I don't need anything from anybody else. So then I can go into relationship open. And I mean, if the person doesn't like me, I mean, that's not everybody's going to like me. It's all right. I mean, I have my people that I know when I need something or when I need to bawl my eyes out or they are the ones that I trust my heart to. But everybody else, I can go in and I can be a good friend to them. So I can love them, I can counsel them, I can help them. But if they can't be as good of a friend to me, that's all right. I don't need anything from them. So because of that, I've developed some really strong friendships and I have become more extroverted, actually. It's helped me to develop that skill. So I think that has been probably the most vital thing and the most beneficial thing that I've had from this whole experience, because to me, relationships are the most important part of your life. Without them, your life is empty. You can start looking for, other things to bring value to your life. But if you don't have somebody that you can love and that can love you back, or somebody that you can make a difference in their life, or you can help them, or you can encourage them or brighten their day, I mean, to me, that's everything. So
Yeah.
In order for me to be able to do that, I had to love myself so that I could love other people. And it's brought so much joy into my life.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so last question. I want you to talk specifically to someone that is watching the live or watching the replay. And I want you to talk specifically to that person who finds themselves in a similar situation of not knowing themselves, of understanding the pattern of always looking to other people that they don't even know themselves. What would be a word of encouragement? I know we kind of offered advice by really being a student of yourself, but what's one thing that you can say to encourage that person, something you wish that you had said to yourself while you were on the side of the road in Cincinnati?
Oh, I don't know if I could I don't know how I would answer that question. Because I feel like everybody's journey is different and everybody's personality, the way that they approach themselves in their life is different. I think one of the most important things that you need to learn is to be able to give yourself grace, to fail, to not live up to other people's expectations. You need to learn how to forgive yourself, and you need to learn how to silence other people's voices. And like I said, the best thing for you to do, if it is going to be very painful, is for you to get yourself alone and try to see, basically, I need to know who this person is. And I can't love this person if I don't know who she is. And that's a big part, because in any relationship, in order for me to love somebody, I need to know that person. I need to trust that person. I need to see that person for who they really are. Otherwise, I can't truly love them because I don't know who they are. So I think that you do have to be able to forgive yourself, give yourself grace, learn to love yourself, and be open and honest with yourself, and be willing to change. I've seen so many people, and this frustrates me a lot. I'll talk to people sometimes and they'll complain. And a lot of times I try to just be, a sounding board, but sometimes I'll try to give advice and I know that they're not going to listen because they're not willing to change. So it gets to the point where, well, obviously you don't want to hear my advice. So I'm just going to say, oh, that sucks, and then keep going. But if you want to change something in your life, you have to be willing to do the work. You have to be willing to confront the ugly parts of yourself, because unless you recognize this is a problem, this is a pattern in my life that is unhealthy, this is something that maybe it's a part of my personality or something that I picked up along the way, whether it's in my childhood or it was because some kind of hurt. And you have to look at it and say, I want to be different. So in order to do that, I have to say, yes, this part of my life is bad. I'm going to have to change it. So I think honesty is really important, openness, and just being able to forgive yourself and to be able to develop that relationship so you do start to love yourself.
Yeah, I love that. I want to say one thing before we close, but Abigail, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Powerful, powerful, powerful. Amazing. Thank you so much for being vulnerable, for sharing your wisdom and your experience. You have given us so much to feast on. And like I tell everyone who watches these, whether you're watching it live or at replay, connect with Abigail. She's on Facebook at Abby Kochek, and I'll put it in the link. You can connect with her on Facebook, message her if there's something that you're struggling with. The purpose of these is to understand how much we are really similar, that the human experience is very human. But I want to specifically talk to those of you who might have strained relationships in your family. One of the things, and I'll just speak to mine and Abigail's relationship. Our relationship in the past probably 3 years, right, Ab? Mm-hmm. In the past 3 years, our relationship has done a complete 180. And it wasn't because Abigail changed for me. It wasn't because I told Abigail, this is how I want you to love me, and you need to treat me like this, which I had that conversation.
You did try to do that.
That's the exact conversation we had. This is what you need to do, and this is who you need me to be. And I was one of those very strenuous voices in her life that was telling her how to live. And it was the same thing. She would get frustrated with me because it was like we were both trying to fit the other person and to make the other person be more like us, or to validate me, or I would get frustrated with our relationship. And I think sometimes it is okay to distance yourself even from family, not out of hate, not out of anger, but sometimes the strained relationships we have in our families are because we're trying to take our family and craft them into somebody they are not. So when you see your family member and you understand they're different, you learn how to value that difference by learning how to value yourself. Our separation with each other, we didn't work on our relationship with each other. We worked on us. That was it. We weren't talking in the ways that we used to because we had to work on us. So when we started to get closer together, our relationship naturally became better because I was working on me behind closed doors and she was working on her. So I want to encourage any of you that have strained relationships with your family members. It's exhausting when you're putting the effort into trying to change the other person. Do the work on you and trust that if that relationship is meant to come back strong, then it will. Because there was moments, I'm sure you thought this, Ab, like, man, I don't know that we'll ever be as close as we used to. I don't know what our relationship looks like after this.
Well, and to your point also, when we were going through this whole situation, and I know you had said this several times that you wanted our relationship to go back to the way it was, and I never wanted it to go back to the way it was, because the way it was, I was not my true self. So in order for us to have the close relationship that we do have, I had to share who I really was, because you didn't know who I really was, because I didn't. Yeah. And I think that's one of the reasons why we got a lot closer. Now our relationship is stronger than ever. And I feel like because we've learned to see the differences in ourselves and we've learned a lot about ourselves. So because of that, we've been able to share our true selves and been able to really value and love that part of ourselves. So then we can love that part of each other.
Yeah. I want to address one more thing. I know this is like going super long, but Lisa Maldonado, which I know she goes to your church. she made a comment and said that she struggles with the guilt that she feels about her sons. And I know that her sons had, they had passed away. Am I correct in that?
Mm-hmm.
Lisa, I just want to hit on this really quick because I know me and Abigail talk about this frequently when it comes to our dad, that when our dad passed away, one of the biggest things that you're going to go through is guilt and regret. Even in the handling of when he was in the hospital, did we make the right decision? Did I love my dad enough? Did I talk to him enough? You know, was I a good daughter? Did I waste time? And really, regret is a wasted emotion. And I know it's easy to say. One thing that that we, and Abigail, you can speak to what you've tried to do, but for me, like when I feel those feelings of guilt, I have to remind myself that I did the best I could, and I loved my dad, and he loved me, and his love continues on in me. And the way that I honor who he is and who he was is not through guilt and not through regret. I honor the beauty of who he was by continuing to live what he lived. And my dad lived unconditional love. My dad lived kindness. My dad loved people. So when I choose to focus on those parts of him, I am continuing to honor him. And the way that life happened with his life and his death, I can't change. So I can continue to honor him through my life. And Ab, you can speak to what you do with those, because I know you've spoken on that as well.
Well, I think too, because I go back and forth all the time. And a lot of times, I mean, I know in my mind that we made the right decision and we did the best as we could. And I felt like we did everything as a family. And I know it was the right decision, but at the same time, in my heart, I doubt myself all the time. And I think really what you need to do is step back, and instead of feeling those feelings for yourself, you have to know, like with us, I have to know that dad would not have been angry with us. He would not have been disappointed in us. And he would have given us that grace and said, I understand, you guys are doing a good job. I mean, and he wasn't good at conveying his feelings. Yeah. But I know, I mean, he thought we were his entire world. And honestly, I didn't realize how much until after he died. But I know that he thought we were perfect, and any decision we would have made, I know he would have trusted us. So yeah. I think a lot of times we get in our own heads and we overanalyze, and we take on a lot of guilt and a lot of regret when the other person would not put that on us. They would not be angry. They would not say, you should be sitting there and feeling guilty because you just made mistake after mistake. How could you? How dare you? When really, I mean, he loved us. He loved us so much. And so just trying to remember that, and it's not easy because, you know, we're fighting with it all the time, and the emotions, it's a roller coaster. Some days you feel good. Some days you feel like somebody punched you in the stomach. But just trying to honor the memory of who they were and not how you lost them, I think is the struggle. And it's something that, you know, I try to work on when I am having issues with that.
Yeah. And I think, Lisa, if you focus on what were the two qualities, like the two shining qualities in your sons, and instead of focusing on the guilt that surrounds it, focus on those two qualities and make a decision. How do I show up with these two qualities in the world every single day so I can continue to honor my sons? Because the beauty is, like Abigail said, I'm sure that if your sons were here to testify of your love, they would have nothing but shining reviews of you. So yeah, I hope that helps. Let me go ahead and end this. We've been chattering forever. Thank you so much for joining me. Make sure you join me next week for another Extraordinary Stories with Extraordinary People. If you have somebody that you know has a story to tell and wants a platform to share it, please reach out to me, DM me. Abigail, thank you so much for being my best friend, for being my best sister. I love you so much.
I love you too.
I love all of you. Go to bed. Keep up tomorrow, and stay safe out there. We'll see you next week.